Hello everyone, this is Tom Fox. I would like to welcome you to the Sunday Book Review. The Sunday Book Review is the series where I discuss books which impact the compliance practitioner, the legal professional, and the business professional. I hope you will enjoy this episode. The Sunday Book Review for October 3rd, 2021, The Travels in America, coming to us from the bookshelf edition of the Wall Street Journal. These were selected by Nathaniel Philbrick, author of Travels with George. First up, Letters from America from Hector St John Cougar. In the 1770s, just before the outbreak of the American Revolution, a young Frenchman traveled up and down the Atlantic seaboard. He was captivated by what he found and ultimately penned 10 evocative, partly fictionalized letters about his experiences in America. Next up, Roughing It by Mark Twain. Rather than fighting the Civil War, Mark Twain headed west with his older brother Orion, who'd been recently appointed Secretary of the new Nevada Territory. This book talks about Twain's adventures in Nevada, California, and even to Hawaii. This is a really fun part of Twain's career, and every American should read this book. Next up, Travels with Charlie by John Steinbeck. In 1960, Steinbeck concluded he did not even know his own country, as it had been 25 years since he had traveled through America for his research for the Grapes of Wrath. So this is the tale of his travels with his dog, Charlie, a poodle, and it's a delightfully quirky trip about the unpredictability of the road. Next up, Old Glory. Jonathan Raban has written lots of different books, but here he looks, or rather traveled down the Mississippi in 1981. And traveling through the South is always an experience. You meet rednecks, you meet racists, and you meet some progressives. And Raban met all of those. Interestingly, at the end of the Carter administration, the first Southern president since prior to the Civil War, or at least the first from the Deep South. Obviously, LBJ was a Southerner. So interesting travels, which really leads to our final book selection, Confederates in the Attic by Tony Horowitz. In the late 1990s, Horowitz set out to discover the places and people who kept the memory of the Civil War alive. Crisscrossing the actual ground over which the Civil War raged, he quickly discovered there are two pasts and two presents, one black, one white, separate and irreconcilable. So as William Faulkner said, the past is not dead, it's not even past yet. Horowitz found the same thing. If you've seen the movie of this tale, you know it really turned into a delightful trip. Lots of very quirky characters. My favorite scene was Horowitz when he went to a Confederate ball dressed as a Confederate officer. So if you're interested in a wide variety of tales on traveling across America, this is the Sunday Book Review for you. I, of course, have all the books listed in the show notes. And as we move into the fall and perhaps less of a busy travel season, if you can do so, get out and travel. Get in your car and drive and experience America in a way that perhaps you have not done so in the past. I hope you'll join me for a great new podcast series entitled Effing Argentina. In this podcast series, myself and Greg Greenberg, the author of Effing Argentina, explore the current American psyche of being overworked, overleveraged, overtired, and overwhelmed. If you are exasperated with current American life, this is the podcast for you. In this month's The Compliance Life, I'm joined by John Mellican, currently a managing director at Exeger and former CCO at American Express Travel. What is design thinking for compliance professionals? How can you use design thinking in compliance? This is a new podcast series I'll be premiering in October, co-hosted with Karsten Tams, where we take a look at cutting-edge social engineering strategies you can use in your compliance program. Finally, I invite you to check out my latest podcast addition to the Compliance Podcast Network, the ESG Report. In this podcast, I focus on the role of compliance in ESG going forward. I know you will enjoy it and, more importantly, find it useful. Thanks for listening.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.